Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy 420, where today we are going to be discussing some priority Week 21 fantasy basketball ads. This week is very important in fantasy basketball as it's the last week before the playoffs. So if you're a fringe team and you're on the cusp of that playoff berth, we're going to highlight some players who play 4 times this week and can rack up some fantasy points and get you into the playoffs and hopefully get you into that championship. You don't have to be one of the best regular seasons to win. You just have to get in. Just remember that. So, like our past free agency videos, these names are less than 50% owned in Yahoo leagues, and all these guys will be playing at least 4 games this week. So, if you need them and you need to win, add them and don't look back. Even if there's going to be some tough decisions, if you have a shallow league or if you have a waiver wire that's a little bit barren and you need to win this week, you might have to drop a little bit less talented player. Don't go overboard, but that being said, trust yourself and make the best decision to win and get you moving forward because that's all that matters at this point. So the first name on this list we're going to highlight is Kelly Olynyk. Probably a last call on him as he's 49% owned, but he's a center for Miami. The Heat have been playing for that 8th seed lately. Olynyk's been on a mad heater. He's been scoring big lately. He's getting at least 30 minutes a game. Hassan Whiteside is dinged up. He should actually be owned in most leagues right now. He's one of those really hot end of the year players. So if he's still there, especially if you need a win, you got to snap him up now. The next name we're going to mention is Dwight Powell. I've mentioned him many times before. 42% owned. Center for Dallas, who plays 4 times this week. He has that 30-minute per game floor, 25 fantasy points per game. Once again, on this stream, when we talk fantasy basketball, it's most of the time in point per game league and not category leagues. And he also has upside blow up potential of a 40-point game. He's sprinkled those in lately. And I just don't see why Dallas wouldn't give a young guy minutes as they're out of it going forward for next year. Just get him that end of the season experience. So another couple names I've mentioned many times, but as Memphis plays 4 times this week, we have to mention them as they're crucial pickups. Avery Bradley is 40% owned, getting fed minutes, coming off one of his best games of the year. Joakim Noah, 34% owned and climbing. He just had a downer game, but those 2 guys play 4 games this week, and if you need to take a risk, those guys are very well worth it, as we've mentioned a bunch of times before. Another name I've mentioned many times, Robin Lopez, 36% owned. Chicago has 4 games this week. Another 30-minute, 25 fantasy point per game guy. He's going to get fed minutes on that Chicago team who's going to rest those younger guys. So it's kind of an inverse situation of Powell as he's the older guy who's going to give the younger guys a break. But I just don't see how in that rotation he's going to see less than 30 minutes and he should be able to rack up some decent fantasy points. The next 3 names I've mentioned not so much or at all, but they play 4 games this week as well, and one of them being Dion Waiters. I believe this is the second time I've mentioned him. We were a little bit scared about his minutes last time I had mentioned him because Goran Dragic was supposed to come back. But with the Tyler Johnson trade, even with Dragic being there, he's still starting. Those 30-minute per game averages are still going to be there, and Miami plays 4 times this week. As we had mentioned with Olynyk, a lot less consistent, but if you need a player with some blow-up potential off of a big point game, Waiters will see the floor and he'll see a chance to do that. So his name is definitely worth mentioning on this list. The next name I'll mention, I don't think I've talked about him before, but it's Cheick Diallo. He's 21% owned. He's a forward center for the New Orleans Pelicans. New Orleans plays 4 games this week, so this name is going to be a little bit risky. He has a lot more value also in category leagues because his field goal percentage has been sky high. He's one of those guys who only shoots when he's super close to the basket. So his production in the field goal percentage range has been absolutely undeniable. You can't look past that. But if you are in a fantasy point per game league, he still has in his last 7 games, 4 of which have been over 30 fantasy points per game. So I mentioned he's a little bit risky because of his low minute totals. He's had in those 7 games an average of the low 20 minutes, and that is not a good thing to rely upon. However, if Davis misses time because they want to DNP him, Diallo is going to see an uptick in minutes. And like I said, it's like a Joakim Noah situation too, where the minutes aren't there, but his production is there. So if you need somebody who plays 4 games this week, all the other guys I've mentioned are gone. He's definitely worth a look, especially if you have a lot of transactions in your league that you can make per week. The final name I will mention on this list, he's even more risky than Diallo, and I've never actually said you should pick this guy up, but Alex Len does have 4 games this week. He's 14% owned. Dwayne Dedman is beat up, and he's coming off of 2 monster games, a 28.9 rebound game and a 24.10 rebound game. We don't know what Atlanta is going to do with those minutes going forward, and he's a very inconsistent player as well. Inconsistent player, inconsistent role, inconsistent minute totals. But that being said, if Dedman sits out tonight and you add Len, he could definitely go off, and he'll have 3 more potential blow-up games. So it's a name where I feel like I said with Diallo, if all those other names are gone and you need somebody who's going to play 4 games because you have to win this week, you have to look at him. I know it's kind of cringy, but that being said, he's worth a mention on this list. Finally, the last name I'm going to mention, not as a pickup because he's over 60% owned, but TJ Warren should finally be back this week for the Phoenix Suns. And the Suns have 4 games this week, and it's probably why I didn't mention Tyler Johnson, just because with Warren coming back, now they have Oubre, Bridges, Josh Jackson, Booker, Johnson. We just don't know what's going to happen with them going forward. Everybody's in a different situation. They might want Warren to play a little bit because he's had a lot of time off. I think I'd knock down Oubre a little peg just because they know what they have in him now and he has a role going forward. They want to give Bridges minutes. Jackson will see a hit. You don't know what they're going to do with Johnson. So, like I said, that situation's up in the air. It's why I didn't mention any Suns. And also, after this week, they only play, I believe, 9 games. So this would really be the last week you'd probably even look at mentioning a Phoenix Sun. So that being said, guys, those are a bunch of names that you should definitely add looking forward to this week, which is, like I said, extremely important. I'll be back with a midweek update because this is the time in basketball where we need to buckle down and win that championship. So I will see you tomorrow with another video, and we will talk then. Have a great day.